Dave, can you hear my background?
Barely.
One in five suffer.
Erase the stigma.
Brain difference is not a crime.
Mental health isn't just your problem.
It's our problem.
And now, Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave.
Welcome to Mental Health
Mondays with Marla and Dave.
Dave, that is correct.
As usual,
remind you guys. Well, go ahead, Marla. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, we stopped saying I am Marla and he's Dave because it's very obvious that I'm Marla and he's Dave. But we are Marla and Dave, and we're always super excited to bring you our Mental Health Monday show, and today is absolutely no exception to that rule.
Before we get the show started, we want to remind you to text the word GIVE, G-I-V-E, to 818-698-1021 and donate $1 today to support our $1 Today Keeps the Stigma Away campaign. And as usual, like Marla said, we have a great show for you today. Our guest today is an alternative pop singer, songwriter, mental health advocate, public speaker, and founder of the nonprofit WisdoMania Foundation, hailing from Toronto, Canada, and currently living in LA. X.Ari has a story to share. After wishing there were more people living with a mental health diagnosis that were also willing to be transparent and share their stories, so that others would possibly have a roadmap to success, she decided that she would be just that person. With 2 new collaborations released for Pride Month, Cheerios featuring DEVMO and Punching Bag featuring Savage Nightingale. Her 7th EP, Song for Dancers, was just released, I believe, just last week. And she's our guest here today, and we're going to have an amazing time. When we come back, we will be speaking with X.Ari. Back in a moment.
When Dave and Marla get together, it's hot.
Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave and NAMI San Fernando Valley believe it doesn't take much to make life a little better for our neighbors, coworkers, friends, our family members, even our children who suffer with mental illness. When you support our $1 Today Keeps the Stigma Away campaign, you are doing your part to erase the stigma surrounding mental illness. For just $1 today, or $1 a day for 1 week, just $7, we can look forward to a future that does not include the unfortunate and uncomfortable stares, bullying, and the subsequent isolation that our loved ones who suffer with brain differences deal with. Text the word GIVE, that's G-I-V-E, to 818-698-1021 to donate. $1 today keeps the stigma away. Brought to you by Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave and NAMI San Fernando Valley.
Listen up. Learn something.
All right, and just like that, as promised, we are back. Marlon, go ahead. I keep interrupting you. I apologize.
No, it's all good. I think we have the same things to say and the same objective. We're super, super happy today, and we want everybody to welcome X.Ari to Mental Health Mondays.
Thank you.
So I gotta jump right in. Talk to me about the name X.Ari.
So X.Ari is a chosen name. It's my artist name, and Ari represents lion. That's what it means in Hebrew.
Okay.
I've always just liked the name. I like that it's short. I like that it's kind of gender ambiguous. And X, it stands for X chromosome, something we all have in common.
Nice.
That
Wow.
is awesome. Now we mentioned in the introduction that you have a new EP that just dropped. Was I correct in saying that?
No, I changed the date to October 10th. Probably my bad for not updating my bio, so that's on me. I moved it to World Mental Health Day.
No problem about that. That's even more amazing.
Yeah.
For sure.
The 2 new collaborations, singles, one featuring a DEVMO, that's Cheerios, and the other one featuring Savage Nightingale, that's Punching Bag.
Yes, those will be on there.
Awesome. So now, is it true that you started performing at 11 years old?
No, I started performing at 8 years old, but I was in my first band when I was 11 years old.
Wow, that is
Yeah.
so. You were fronting a band at 11 years old.
No, I was not fronting the band. I was like in a girl band, and like we just started, and we weren't playing shows yet until I was 13. But I started with theater when I was 8 years old, and then recorded my first cover song when I was 10. Joined my first band when I was 11. Then we had a record by the time I was 13. So that's when I started performing in the band, not in the front, but amongst other girls.
I love that. And we're
Wow.
the other
So
girls about
basically
the same
that's
age? I'm sorry, were the other girls about the same age?
I was the youngest.
Wow. What was the age range, if I might ask?
We had some variations, but when I was like 13, one was 17 and 18.
Wow.
wow.
I love it.
So that was a passion that obviously was just in you. You were, I mean, when you talk about, driven to be in a band at 8 years old, that has to be a part of your actual design as a human, and some of the passion.
Yeah. I just loved what I was a copycat of my older sister. So whatever she did, I wanted to do. And she was doing singing lessons in theaters. So I said I wanted to also.
What about
And
your
then
are your parents musical?
no, not really. But my mom says her mom wanted to be a singer, and she never
Okay.
was. And my cousins are all very musically talented.
All right. So it runs in the family. We can generally say that.
Yes, yeah.
Well, let's jump right in. When did you first notice that you were dealing with a mental health challenge?
I'd say in high school was the first time I noticed that something was going on. I dealt with mental health challenges since I was a little kid, but I didn't know that's what it was. But in high school would be the first time I think I recognized there's something going on here.
And what was that sign? Yeah.
I was going to say, what did that look like for you?
Depression. I think that's when I first really realized it was like something serious.
And when you say depression, was that I'm sure that wasn't a diagnosis at the beginning. You just felt kind of low energy, kind of down, and you really just couldn't figure out how you couldn't come out of that.
In general, yeah. And then loss of appetite, changing sleeping patterns, like isolating, just like general, not feeling like any joy from anything, and just kind of checking out.
Now, did your family notice that as well, or your bandmates?
My family was too caught up in their own drama. Like my parents were going through a divorce, and they weren't at that time. I'm happy to say I have really amazing parents, but at that time they weren't in the best that they could be. So they didn't know how to address it or give it any attention really.
And were you also isolating yourself from your older sibling as well?
No.
So you just kind of were pulling back a little bit, and you started noticing that something might be a little off. How did that progress?
It would get worse for months, and then kind of I was saying it to my therapist one day. She's like, how do you get out of, when you're in a bad state? And it's like, with depression, it's kind of like one day I woke up and I felt a little better, and then the next day a little better, and then a little better, and then it's right back to normal, whatever normal means for each person. So I just eventually got out of it.
And what was when did you first actually say to yourself, maybe I need some therapy? Was that someone else
outside help
that to you?
When I was 15, yeah.
And what did that look like?
It looked like me asking my parents for therapy, and then once I went to the therapist and told them what was going on in my house, I was no longer allowed to have treatment. So I wasn't able to get therapy.
What?
Yeah, because my family was so chaotic and dysfunctional that if my parents let me open up to a therapist, they might not be allowed to keep their kids.
So it was in an effort to essentially be sure that whatever it was,
to protect the family, that I wouldn't say something that could tear my family apart.
Right.
And how did that understanding that you needed to sort of keep the family line, I guess, so to speak, how did that affect you?
Well, it was bad because, I had no coping skills and I didn't get support that I needed. I wasn't getting it at home and I couldn't get it from therapy. So definitely found myself turning to drugs and alcohol and just like rebellion.
Trying to cope.
Yeah, because I didn't have like songwriting and music was always there, but the rest of my other coping skills weren't, I didn't know them yet like I do now.
Wow. Well, I believe, and again, we always are super happy to have all the shared stories here because what you're expressing right now is something I believe, is inspirational or at least gives an insight into others. A lot of people deal with that very actual issue where you're just, you're out of sync, out of sorts. You may not know what, you want to be able to share it, but at the same time, I talk about constantly, which I'm glad you're having this conversation with us, the line between responsible honesty and a transparent share for the purposes of transformation versus just, with the intent of just, overflowing to kind of punish or hurt someone else.
Oh yeah. I love my family and I love my parents and, I've forgiven them for certain things they've done and we have an amazing relationship now. And my mom has, and dad, and like my mom specifically has listened, I think, to more things that I've talked on and will continue to apologize. And I'm like, there's no need to apologize. I forgive you. I love you. I'm just sharing to help other people,
right.
Not sharing because I'm holding anything against my family. I think most people are doing the best they can with the resources they have.
Right.
And is it easier, do you think, to forgive based on the understanding that most people don't quite understand what it is to go through some of the things that people with these types of challenges have to deal with?
Yeah, I definitely think there are a lot of people who don't understand the severity of mental illness and don't recognize like how important it is to intervene at a young age and to not leave it and let it be repressed. And I'm totally aware that not everybody is as educated, and that's why we're all here.
Question for you. Do you have a personal problem, issue, or an aversion to we're going to take a break, but I want you to answer this when we come back, to the term mental illness and or diagnosis? So we talked about your history, and I want to know if you have a personal aversion to those things. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with X.Ari. Stay tuned for her answer. See you in a second.
It's time for the Mental Health Minute with Marla and Dave.
Suicide causes immeasurable pain, suffering, and loss to individuals and families and communities nationwide. On average, 112 Americans die by suicide each day.
But in many cases, suicide is preventable. So it's important to know what to do. If someone you know is showing one or more of the following behaviors, please don't ignore these warning signs. Get help immediately. Talking about wanting to die or kill oneself. Looking for a way to kill oneself. Talking about feeling hopeless or having no reason to live. Talking about feeling trapped or in an unbearable pain. Talking about being a burden to others.
Increasing the use of alcohol or drugs, acting anxious or agitated, behaving recklessly, sleeping too little or too much, withdrawing or feeling isolated, showing rage or talking about seeking revenge, displaying extreme mood swings.
Again, if you or someone you know are showing signs of any of these behaviors or symptoms, please, we ask, seek help immediately. Call 988. In some cases, 988 isn't completely rolled out, so you can also call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK or 8255. Trained crisis workers are available to talk 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This message is brought to you by Mental Health Monday with Marla and Dave.
David is a thinker.
I never do anything without thinking about it first.
Marla is a feeler.
I basically wear my personality on my sleeve.
But when Marla and Dave get together, It's like a match dancing with a firecracker.
And we're back. So X.Ari, before we went to the last break, I threw something on your plate that I'd love to hear the answer to. And it was essentially asking you personally, what do you feel about the labeling or diagnosis, just the term mental illness, and or a given diagnosis towards mental illness? What do you feel about that?
I have no issue with it. Like, I think everybody has mental health. We all have mental health, but not everybody has mental illness. And I think I can say I have a mental illness, it's something to be taken seriously and not lightly and to be given attention to. And there's no problem with saying physical illness, when someone has diabetes. So why should it be so difficult to say I have a mental illness?
Now, do you think that's because sort of as an artist and seeking that individual perspective and that pathway into really highlighting and showcasing your individuality, you think that's part of what makes it easier? Because a lot of people have a hard time with differentiating between and diagnosis and the who of who they are actually.
Oh yeah, like I think it's definitely like it's all in the language used, right? So I could choose to say I am bipolar or I have bipolar, right? Nobody's saying I am diabetes. But
Right.
if I go around and say I am bipolar, I'm telling myself that's my identity. But if I say I have bipolar, that's a condition that I live with, and it's not something that determines who I am.
It's a different identification
it's acknowledging having a certain condition rather than being like having symptoms or conditions, not that being your defining feature.
Yeah, so a lot of people, when they first start to understand that there could be something that they need to pay a little bit more attention to, especially when it comes to their mental health, a lot of times, it takes going to one therapist and maybe not feeling like the diagnosis is correct. Did you have any of those experiences where you felt like you were misdiagnosed?
Yes. Yeah. I think when I was diagnosed with ADHD years ago, which I'm not even sure if I still have, but when I was, it felt very easy to be like, oh, that's okay. I guess like I don't even want to downplay by saying it's just ADHD, because for some people that could be a very difficult challenge. But for me, I felt like, okay, that's like, I know other people with ADHD. It's lots of people have ADHD. That's okay with me. Or when I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety, I felt the same way. But when I was hospitalized in 2016 after a major mental health crisis and was diagnosed with bipolar 1, I was like, no, because I felt so much more stigma and shame surrounding the diagnosis of bipolar. So I felt it was wrong. And then I was wrong. They were right. And it took a couple episodes for me to say, okay, you're right. Like, I would be dumb not to believe it now. I'm convinced. But I needed convincing, and I needed to go through additional episodes to really believe it. And that was not because it wasn't true. It was because I didn't want it to be true. And I was too scared of facing my life and reality with that diagnosis.
Now, by this time, were your parents in a better place? Did you have friends that were your support at this time that kind of helped you come to that understanding? Or did you just have to just go cold turkey and say, this is what it is? I'm alone, but I still have to deal with it.
I'm lucky to have lots of great friends, and like I think a lot of family relationships mended even more after that episode and after I recovered from it. But it wasn't like anyone else who like looked at me and was like, you have bipolar, face it. It was just like once I had another episode a year and a half later that looked exactly the same, nearly, I was like, okay, well, there's some evidence here, and I would be amiss to ignore it, and maybe I should get on meds. So I think it's like it was my own, like I had to be convinced on my own, and I had to like admit it on my own.
That's a blessing to get to that position, for sure.
Absolutely. So now, as an artist, especially as a singer-songwriter, and most singer-songwriters that I know as a fellow musician, most singer-songwriters that I know literally take the things that they deal with and sort of paint a picture through their music. Is that something that you're into as well?
Definitely. Yeah. I call my motto is pain into power, and it means using the arts and self-care to basically like transmute, or I should say actually pain into power is like transmutation. It's like changing weaknesses into strengths, finding blessings in your burdens. And I do that through the arts and self-care, but really anybody could find any conduit in any medium that's healthy to do that with. But yes, the answer is yes. I, like most all artists, like put my energy and pain into my songs and get a sense of relief after.
So,
I'll go. Sorry, go ahead, Marla.
no, I was just going to ask her about her art and how her music and her voice have led her to be basically a champion for this cause and going as far as even starting your own foundation. So I wanted to kind of, transfer into that because, I always say, to me, there's kind of no pain without purpose. And so it's very clear that you found purpose in your pain. So talk to us a little bit about your nonprofit, which is WisdoMania.
Yes. Yeah. So it was after this crisis in 2016 when I started getting better in 2017 that I realized I'm like, I could be full of shame and self-stigma, or I can really own and be empowered and help other people by sharing my story and my healing process. So I started there. And then I started a Pain into Power journal collection and there were self-reflection journals and also healing candles. And I started speaking publicly and writing about it in my music, which I hadn't really done so like straightforwardly before. And then a few years after that, I found my way to NAMI, which I was trying to find my way towards for a while and didn't know how to reach them. And then I was connected with them and I started speaking at schools and I started collaborating with other nonprofits, and I really love NAMI. And I founded Mental Health Month with X.Ari, which was a festival online during COVID, during Mental Health Month in May. And it was 30 days of wellness and arts online. And I put it together kind of really fast, and a lot of people signed up really quickly. And I was like, wow, there's something here. So that turned into the idea of WisdoMania Fest, an immersive mental health and arts festival, which then evolved into the 501c3 nonprofit WisdoMania Foundation, which integrates the arts and self-care to bring meaningful experiences to communities in LA with the goal of empowering people with the coping skills they need to thrive through creativity and resources.
I love that. I love that. So, and you
Absolutely.
also mentioned that you also do sound bath healing. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so I actually did one last night. Sound healing is using a variety of high frequency instruments to essentially tune up the body and to level up your vibrations, and also just relax. It's very relaxing. And I use 7 chakra singing bowls. They're crystal, and swinging chimes, koshi chimes, an ocean drum, and a gong. And there's a variety of instruments you can use. And I also integrate my voice into the experience.
So is that process, is it just for, is it a meditation? Or
it's totally meditative.
Type of healing? Okay.
It's meditative for sure, but I wouldn't call it a meditation. I'd call it a sound healing experience or a sound bath, but I do intertwine some meditation. And you totally can meditate while listening to a sound bath.
That's the question. Okay, perfect. All right, well, as we can tell, there's a wealth of information we have coming from X.Ari here on Mental Health Mondays, so it wouldn't benefit you to move. Just stay right there.
All right, that music lets us know it's time for the poll question. Marla, what was the poll question last week? Please remind us.
Dave, are you just going to ignore my dancing head?
No, I like the bobblehead dance. It's a new thing. I appreciate it. And the braids are cute, by the way.
The question is, last week we asked the question, X.Ari. Last week we asked, what is the number of U.S. adults with schizophrenia? 500,000, 1 million, or 1.5 million?
And Ari, that's a chance for you to actually chime in. Now, last week you gave an answer, but we
the percentage.
We always wait. Yes. So again, the question is, what is the number of U.S. adults with schizophrenia? Do you think it's 500,000, 1 million, or 1.5 million?
Probably 1.5 million.
Ding, ding, ding. You are
Wow.
absolutely correct.
Yeah. Because I was thinking it's probably more than you'd think.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? That's a
Probably
pretty
is.
good deductive. Can you take future test for me? You do very well. With
All
your
right.
deductive reasoning.
Thank
So
you.
Next week, our poll question is, and this is the question for next week, and Ari will give you a chance to actually take a stab at this one as well. What percentage of people who suffer from depression have a higher risk of developing cardiovascular and metabolic diseases as well? Would that be 20%, 30%, or 40%? Again, the question is, what percentage of people who suffer from depression have a higher risk of developing cardiovascular and metabolic diseases as well? 20%, 30%, or 40%? What do you think?
30?
Okay.
well, here's the thing. And how are we going to do this, Dave?
That's true. Okay, so since, and Marla, you're actually making a hint. Tell us what you're hinting at right quick.
What I'm hinting at, guys, is unfortunately the Mental Health Mondays is going to be restructured. It will be back. It might have a different title. But so next week, we like to hold our guests in suspense. But this week, I'm going to let Tony weigh in.
Well, I'm gonna say this. We'll actually put the answer up on our social media.
It's
this
going to be on
week.
our social media as usual, for sure.
Absolutely. So,
But I think it's not fair because we need to let X.Ari know whether she,
Yeah, if
came
I'm
with.
right or wrong.
that's
All right,
true.
so here
Marla,
we
I'll
go.
leave it up to you.
All right, so your answer to the question again: what percentage of people suffer from depression have a higher risk of developing cardiovascular or metabolic diseases? Your answer was what?
She said 30%.
30.
Unfortunately, you should go with the same deductive reasoning. It is 40%.
I wasn't sure if it would be the same reasoning. So I was like, are they going to do the same
You're
thing
right,
again and make it
more
C?
people suffer in silence than they do speak out loud, and that's the truth about mental
Wow.
health. And that is what Dave and I are
Wow.
committed, no matter what the name of our show, to change. I wear this camouflage today because the fight for me is forever, and it will never change. No matter what the name is, I will fight on. So that's awesome. All right, well,
We'll get back to our conversation with Ari in just a second. We'll be right back. And just like that, we are back. So Ari, how can someone who is interested in following your music, getting to know a lot more about you, how can they reach you? How can you be contacted? And someone can follow you as well.
I'd say I'm probably the most active on Instagram. So my Instagram's X.Ari official. And you can follow me on there, send me a DM if you want to chat about mental health or anything. I'm not a mental health professional, but I'm always down to share tips and resources.
I love that.
Absolutely. Me as well, for sure. Absolutely. The privilege that I believe that Dave and I have had, and I have to speak to this, and fitting that you would be our final guest on this format. But every single solitary conversation that we've been able to have has been so valuable. And it's a community of voices and stories and experiences and expertise that will continue to come together to bring and to break a stigma and to encourage us that managing our mental wellness is equal to going to the doctor and getting a physical. It's just, we are mind, body, and spirit. And so you embody that in what you do in your art. You've shared that in the conversation that you've had. I really do. We didn't get all into it, but I was really happy to hear the growth and the acceptance inside your family. We need more of that. Everything that we talk about, and I say this all the time, I'm not ever encouraging the transparency to be just a social media vomit fest, but to encourage us all to be able to speak freely and to be able to find someone in our circle. We're afraid to share privately. So, kudos to you. Kudos to your music. We will be following. And I'm going to turn it over to you to give us your final words of wisdom and encouragement, or the best X.Ari tip that you can give us as far as it relates to your life and your mission.
I would say the most important thing for me has been reminding myself that everything is temporary, and so impermanence, and just acknowledging, okay, I might have anxiety right now. Let's see, it might be gone in 15 minutes. I can get through 15 minutes. Or maybe I'm going through an episode of mania. Okay, I know that might only be 1 month. Let's hang on. Or maybe I have suicidal ideation for the first time. Well, that might go away. So just hang on. We don't need to make drastic solutions for temporary problems, and just remember things can change, and to have hope, because you will get through whatever you're going through, and things really do get better.
Absolutely. Our guest has been Ari. Actually, her artist name is X.Ari, and she's been amazing. We thank you for taking the time as usual. We thank all of you for spending some time with us each and every Monday. As we revamp the show, we promise that we will be right back as soon as we possibly can with more of this great content. Don't move. And remember, you can always stop by and check us out on our social medias, as well as our website, www.lovingbeyondreason.org. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you, Ari.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's raw, real, and unfiltered.